Hi, Carol Fitzpatrick here. One of my friends suggested that I should tell you the story, my case history, of how I got into working with dyslexic people, because there's just so many things that have happened over the years that I should be sharing with you. That's one of the reasons why I go to so much trouble to share about dyslexia and how to work with dyslexic people, because I've seen so much happen in people's lives when they get their learning disability conquered. In fact, I just started a new organization called Crushing Dyslexia, because I want to crush dyslexia, crush the disability so that the gifts can bloom. These people, when they get their reading under control, they blossom. And that is so much fun to watch. So here's my story. It goes back to 1974 when I had my first student teaching experience, and the teacher took pity on me because I was supposed to just sit and observe for weeks and I was going crazy. So she gave me a boy to work with. His name was Jimmy, and he had dyslexia. And I had so much fun working with him. He was so smart. Couldn't read. He was third grade, couldn't read anything. But it got my attention. And I went back to the university 5th year program and signed up for the next semester for the extra class on diagnosing and treating reading disabilities. So I was ready. So that if I got out there, I would be able to do what I needed to do for a dyslexic kid. And I taught for a little while. I got married, had children, stayed home, and it was time for my children to go to school, and they were ready. I mean, I'd been doing all the pre-reading stuff and working with them and doing hands-on and playing, and they were ready for school and so smart. We all think our children are smart. Well, I knew my children were very smart. So I sent my oldest off to kindergarten and was shocked. Within a couple of weeks, he hated school. He had stomach aches every Friday, and I had no idea, because I had actually kept him out an extra year. He had a late July birthday, so I didn't want him to be the youngest, so he was older than a lot of the kids in the class. Struggling? I actually had to take him to the doctor, and the doctor prescribed sedatives for a kindergartner to go to school. His frustration was so great, and I'm going, what is going on? So I picked the kids up, everything. We got a job 20 miles away so he could go to a different kindergarten that I thought would be better, and it was. He was okay. But then when we moved back to the town, I had to come back. Same thing happened. It's frustration. I went and talked to the kindergarten teacher and found out she was a third grade teacher. They didn't have a kindergarten teacher. She had no experience with emergent literacy or teaching it, and was so proud because her little kindergartners, every week she gave them a story to read, and they would read it. They were reading as far as she was concerned. She didn't understand, though, why John always was the last one, because my poor son waited till Friday, listened to every single kid read, and tried to memorize every story. I didn't know, but I knew that something was wrong. The next year, I just couldn't put him into that situation again, so I homeschooled. That was a time when homeschoolers were the lunatic fringe. We were the crazies, and our families were very upset that we were going to keep John out and teach him at home. But within 2 days, I went, he's dyslexic. Where did that come from? Because I didn't see it. I had no clue. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't see the dyslexia in our family. Now I know it's there. There's a lot. I'm dyslexic. But I didn't know it. I've gotten through pretty well because I'm mild. Anyway, my poor son, I knew that no matter what I had done in college to prepare myself to work with dyslexic children, I did not have the tools to teach him. So I went back. Right then, I had to travel from Nevada to the Bay Area and live there for a month to be trained in an Orton Gillingham method called Slingerland, which was excellent. So I came home with that, and I was able to teach both of my sons to read. I was only able to homeschool for a couple of years before I had to go back into teaching. But they learned. And when they went back into school, they were readers. They were able to succeed. So, and by the way, that Johnny that had so much trouble there went on to graduate from the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Skin of his teeth. But that little dyslexic boy made it and did a really good job. So things can happen. Things can change. But what happened to me was I went back into the classroom after that. I was a music teacher. And I made sure that I brought those methods that I had learned for my sons that work with dyslexic kids into my classroom so that no child coming into my classroom would struggle with having to read something they couldn't read. I made sure they had access to everything that I was teaching. And then I did that for several years and decided I really wanted to change, so I wanted to go back into the classroom. And I did, and I brought those methods with me. Now, to make the long story short, within a few years, the people that were teaching the grades below me were starting to send me all their struggling readers because the kids were doing so well in my room. And they were doing well. They were doing excellently well. So I decided I better start keeping some data on it and just see what was going on, because I suspected something pretty amazing was happening. So the first year I did it, they were sending me, we were deploying, and I wouldn't do this again. But at that time, I said, sure, give me all your struggling readers, the lowest kids in the 4th and 5th grades. I'll take them all. Bad idea. But I did that. And I started using the methods that I had learned through Slingerland, the structured literacy type methods applied to a classroom setting. I adapted them to work. And what happened was those struggling readers that were below a year below in reading, when I got them at the beginning of the year on our beginning of the year standardized testing, by the end of the year, they were averaging 2.5 years of growth. And that first year, I had a boy go from primer level to 4th grade 1 year, 4-year jump. I did it again. That got some attention. It really did. The next year, it happened again. I did the same thing. I took anybody that was a year below, I kept data on them, and another 2.5 year jump. Well, the district took notice. The school district wasn't large. There were 14 elementary schools, 2 high schools, 2 junior highs. Not huge, but they noticed me because my scores were pretty amazing. And they just said, hey, this was before reading coaches. This was RTI had not started. They just said, oh, just do it for the whole school. I said, okay, you have no budget. Your budget is your salary. You'll have to do everything without a budget, but we give you a room and we'll pay you. I said, okay, that's fine. I'd love to do this. So I actually had my own response to intervention program set up where I did data on all the kids, and I took the ones that were most struggling from each grade level and worked with them and used the methods that I had learned, the methods that I will be doing in the seminars and the different things. They're all Orton Gillingham based. I averaged the same thing. Well, I didn't. I'll be honest with you. We were using dibbles, and they took the kids. I got the 6 most struggling from each class. I had 18 kids from each grade level. The ones that were lowest on dibbles, most at risk. But then they did it in the middle of the year. And a lot of kids in there had already exceeded the kids that were in the classroom, so they switched some of them out. I shouldn't have let them do that because that wasn't good. They needed a year to be with me. But they switched them out, and even though they did that switch mid-year, I was averaging 1.5 years growth for that group. That's incredible. If a tutor is really happy if they can get a child to make a year's growth in 1 year, a struggling dyslexic student, if they can do 1 year's growth. The trouble is, the other kids keep going farther and farther and farther. So my kids were catching up. They were fine. So that got a lot of attention. And I decided teachers were asking me lots of questions. And I was either going to have to retire or work for 3 more years, and I decided to take early retirement. And I wrote a book called How to Respond to Struggling, Help I Can't Read, How to Respond to Struggling Readers in Your Classroom. And I've sold a lot of them. So that book is there. It shows teachers how to take everything, how to take your data, work with it, turn it into a plan the next day so you know exactly where to focus every child in your class, where their skills are good and where they need to have some help. And then I show you how to do that. That is what came out of it. Now what's happened since then is I went back to teaching for another school district for a while as a Title I teacher. Same thing, use my methods. For a while they weren't letting me teach kids. I was the supervisor, so I had to enter data. Not good. Don't do that. I finally, they were about to take 2 kids and put them into special ed because they hadn't made any growth. And I just said, may I teach them? Let me work with them for the next 6 weeks before we do our next evaluation time. And let's see what I can do. They did not need to go to special ed. They were doing, by the end of the 6 weeks, they'd made significant progress. And what was it? It was the methods. This is not about me. This is about using methods that are research-based and that we know work with dyslexia. So that's how I've gotten where I am. Now I'm semi-retired. I'm not really retired. I've never worked harder in my life, but I get to do what I want to do. Living in Arizona. I'm still a certified reading specialist here. I have my own tutoring business. I work with kids. I speak at conventions. I do a lot of things, but now I really want to spread these things out. I want to show teachers and parents and anybody working with dyslexic kids simple changes, simple accommodations, simple ways that you change how you teach can make a lifetime difference for your child. And it won't be you. It'll be because you took the time to learn methods that work. So thank you. That is my story. And I'm very willing to share. You go to www.crushingdyslexia.com for more information. Love to talk to you. Sign up for my free 30-minute interview. Anyway, thank you for listening.